Please come to lie on your backs and just let the floor take your weight. And start to notice what parts of you are making contact with the floor, and what parts of you are not making contact with the floor. Notice your right side from your right foot up through your right leg, the right side of your pelvis, the right side of your rib cage, and your right arm, and the right side of your neck and your head, and just get a sense of this right side. And then starting at your left foot, just bring your attention up through your left ankle and your left knee, and your left thigh, your left hip, the left side of your rib cage, your left arm, the left side of your neck, the left side of your head. And now notice your left leg and draw a line starting at your hip joint, the left hip joint, drawn all the way down to your left big toe. And then do the same thing on your right leg, from your right hip joint, drawing a line down through your right knee to your right big toe. And get a sense of these two lines, your two leg lines. And then starting at your coccyx, at your tailbone, draw a line up through your sacrum and up through your lower lumbar curve. Just following it vertebra by vertebra, just walking up your spine, up between your shoulder blades, up to where your spine intersects with your shoulders, then up through your cervical spine, in your neck, and up into your head. The top two vertebrae are inside your head. And just get a sense of this line, your spine line. And then from that T1, C7 vertebra where your spine intersects with your shoulder girdle, draw a line from that little vertebra. It's the little humpy vertebra right by your shoulder girdle, and draw a line outwards to the right through your right shoulder and your right elbow, through your right wrist, through to the end of your right middle finger. And then do the same thing on the left side, starting at the same place, in that T1C7 vertebra, and draw a line out to the left through your left shoulder blade, excuse me, your left shoulder joint, down through your left arm and your left elbow, all the way down to the tip of your left middle finger. And notice these two lines. These are your arm lines. And compare your right arm line to your left arm line. Does one feel longer or shorter or heavier? Does one feel like it's sinking into the floor more? And compare your two leg lines. Does one of your legs feel longer or shorter or heavier, more crooked? Just compare your two leg lines and your two arm lines, and then get a sense of how these leg lines and arm lines hang off your spine, off the spine line, and kind of step back from feeling your arms and legs and see if you can get a sense of your whole self, this skeletal structure of these 5 lines. And now bend your knees and bring your feet to standing in some comfortable way. Place your feet in a place where you don't need to put too much effort into holding your knees up. And now bring your attention to your right hand. And if you prefer to start with your left, go ahead and feel free to do that. And just translate my instructions. So bringing your attention to your right hand, begin the movement of just rolling your wrist a little bit left and a little bit right. And stay in that easy range. If you find that the limits of your range, then come back by half. So stay in just that easiest part. You're just rolling your wrists a little bit left and a little bit right. And then notice how this impulse travels up your arm. So as you're rolling this wrist many times, what do you feel in your elbow? What do you feel in your shoulder? Can you feel it in your shoulder blade? How about your neck? And bring your attention to your breathing. And find some rhythm of breath that makes this movement just feel so easy. Does your head want to roll? If you release your neck muscles and let that impulse travel up through your neck, does your head want to roll in one direction or the other? And just let that happen. And then pause. And begin this rolling movement now with your left wrist. Just make it so easy. Does this side feel easier or harder or maybe the same? Does it have more of a range of movement or less? And then let your attention just follow this movement up your arm. And how far up can you feel it? And check in with your elbow. Can you feel it in your shoulder blade? Does your head want to roll? Does it want to respond to this movement? And just let that happen. And then bring your right hand into it too. So you're rolling both your left hand and your right hand now. And what does it feel like if you let your head roll with your hands? So when your hands are rolling to the left, let your head roll to the left. When your hands are rolling to the right, let your head roll to the right. Just fall into this easy movement. Can you feel the twist in your spine as you roll your head? And notice how far down can you feel that twist? Can you feel it down between your shoulder blades? And now let your head roll opposite. So when your hands are rolling to the left, let your head roll to the right. And see what this feels like. Staying in that rhythmic breath. And then let that go and rest with your legs long if that's comfortable, or leave them standing if that's more comfortable. And check in with your 5 lines now. Feel your arm lines and your leg lines and your spine line. Just get a sense of if anything has changed. And now bring your feet back up to standing with your knees bent. And bring your attention to your right shoulder. And just let your right shoulder just float up away from the floor just a tiny bit and then come back down. Doesn't have to be a big movement. Notice how this movement travels. What do you feel in your shoulder blade? What do you feel in your rib cage? You feel that there's a turning a little bit to the left as you lift the shoulder up just a tiny bit and let it come back down. And release your neck and let your head roll with the movement. Just let it roll to the left as you're raising your right shoulder. Just let it roll a little bit to the left a few times and see what that feels like. Maintaining this easy breath. What does that movement of the head feel like in your spine? And then a few times, let your head roll towards the lifting shoulder. So let it roll to the right as your right shoulder lifts up a little bit off the floor. And notice what this feels like. Does it change the sensation of this movement in your back or in your chest if you roll your head the opposite direction? And then when you're ready, let your head begin to roll to the left again, away from the lifting shoulder. And then pause. And begin the same movement with the left shoulder now, just letting the left shoulder float up just a little bit. What does your head want to do? How does this simple movement in the shoulder travel through your rib cage? Can you feel a little bit of a softening in your breastbone? The ribs on the left side, get a little bit farther apart. They expand on the left side and contract a little bit on the right. So letting your head roll to the right as you lift the left shoulder. Just getting into this easy, natural rhythm of your body, what feels good to your body. In the Feldenkrais method, I'm not doing the movement with you as a demonstration, but rather just giving you verbal cues because I want you to feel yourself and what movement you are capable of doing easily. So it's about bringing your attention inside yourself to get a felt sense of yourself, to notice what it feels like as your head is rolling away from the lifting shoulder. And then without judgment, noticing what it feels like to roll your head towards the lifting shoulder. So as you're lifting the left shoulder, let your head roll to the left. And notice whether it's tighter on this side or it's easier. And again, without judgment. So many of the physical problems that we have with pain and dysfunction is because some place is not moving very well. So what we're doing is we're looking to coax those little places that don't move as well into moving a little bit, just really gently. And then once the body starts to realize, oh, this thing can help me, it will add that to its movement vocabulary. And now let the head roll away from the lifting shoulder again. And when you're ready, alternate between lifting the left shoulder and the right shoulder. Just Just letting your head roll left and right in this easy movement. What does this feel like in your upper back? What does it feel like in your lower back? What's doing the work? And can you find a way to put even less effort into it? And then just a few times, let your head roll towards the lifting shoulder. See how that changes the movement. And then let that go and rest with your legs long. And notice your 5 lines now. How does your spine line feel from this really gentle movement of the head? And how do your arm lines feel from the gentle lifting of your shoulders? And now bring your feet back up to standing. And begin the movement of letting your knees tilt just a little bit to the right and then back up to the middle. You do that many times. Make it really slow and easy. You don't have to go as far as you can go right away. Feel how the pressure is rolling over your feet as your knees tilt. And your pelvis is shifting the weight a little bit to the right side. And notice that there's a place where you can tilt your legs a little bit just inside the hip joint before the pelvis engages. So if you just take it just a little bit, the pelvis doesn't want to move. But if you take the knees just a little bit farther, the pelvis is going to engage and move with it. And just see if you can find that range of movement inside your hip joints that doesn't engage the pelvis, just as an experiment. And again, we're not judging anything, we're just noticing. And then when you're ready, you can let your knees go a little bit farther and start to notice how the pelvis engages. And as your pelvis engages, it's tilting the sacrum to the left, to the right. And can you feel how the spine starts to twist just a little bit in the lumbar? And start to notice how far up can you feel that twisting in your spine. You just take the movement so slowly, you can just feel it vertebra by vertebra, following it up your spine. And just start to notice how far up can you feel it. And let your head roll in the same direction as your knees. And what's your breath doing? Are you inhaling as you tilt your knees, or does it feel better to exhale? Just try it both ways. And then just for fun, take your head in the opposite direction of your knees. This is one of my favorite movements because it brings some space between the vertebra in the spine. And Moshe always said that we were just trying to make peace with gravity. Giving some space in our spine frees up our movement. And then let your head go in the same direction again. And then rest with your knees standing just for a moment. Check in with your breath. Notice what levels of tension you may be having in your belly or your chest or your pelvis, maybe your jaw. Just notice if there's any unnecessary tension and see what you can do to let it go. And now cross your right knee over your left knee. And begin a movement of now tilting your knees to the right again. Just a little bit. Doesn't have to be a big movement. In fact, a smaller movement is better. We get 90% of the information we want out of the movement in the first few centimeters of movement. We don't need all that big stuff to sense ourselves. So notice, since we've locked our legs, moving the knees to the right now, the pelvis immediately starts to engage and tilt to the right. And let your head roll to the right as well. And can you feel that there's a bit of a tug on your left shoulder? If you take your knees far enough, can you feel how eventually your left shoulder is going to want to float up a little bit from the floor? And just let that start to happen. So your head is rolling to the right. Your left shoulder is floating up a little bit. And you're breathing. And then let your head roll to the left as your legs are tilting to the right. And how is this different from when you didn't have your legs crossed? How does this movement travel up through your chest? What are your ribs doing? And then let your head roll to the right again. And then uncross your knees and continue to tilt your knees to the right. And now notice, how has this changed? Has it gotten any easier? Can you feel the twist in the spine up higher now? And then let that all go and rest with your legs long, if that's comfortable. You can leave them standing if that's more comfortable for you. And check in with your breath. And check in with your 5 lines. And then bring your knees back up to standing, and we're going to do the same thing to the other side. So begin by tilting your knees a little bit to the left. You feel this shift in your weight towards the left. And as you're tilting your knees to the left, when does your pelvis engage? Letting your head roll to the left with your knees. Noticing how this travels up your spine. What does it feel like in your belly, in your chest? And then let your head roll opposite your knees a few times. When your head is tilting the opposite direction of your knees, it's twisting the spine opposite. So somewhere in the middle, these two twists, these two opposing twists are meeting. Can you figure out where you can sense that? The spine twisting one direction from your neck down, the spine twisting the other direction from your hips up. Where does it meet in the middle? And then let your head go the same direction as your knees. And pause. Just pause with your knees standing for a moment. And then when you're ready, cross your left knee over your right knee. And begin a movement of tilting your knees to the left. Feel how the pelvis immediately engages. And notice that twist in the spine. How far up can you feel the twist now? Does your head want to roll? Do you feel that impulse go all the way up to your head, projecting into your head a desire to roll to the left? And even if you don't feel that impulse, go ahead and let your head roll a little bit to the left as you're tilting your knees to the left. And now instead of twisting, your spine is just rolling. And now see what would happen if you take your knees to the left far enough that you start to feel your right shoulder want to float up a little bit away from the floor. You feel that diagonal connection. You're taking your legs to the left, the right hip floats up, and eventually, if you keep floating that up, the right shoulder is going to want to follow. Let the head roll to the left. And what do you feel in your rib cage? Can you feel that lengthening on the right side? And probably a little shortening on the left side. And then the next time everything's in the middle, let your head go to the right as your knees go to the left. Again, getting this lovely ringing the mop sensation of lengthening the spine. Feeling your breath. And then let your head go in the same direction a few times. Notice if it's any easier. And then whenever you're ready, you can uncross your knees and just take your knees uncrossed a little bit to the left. Letting your head roll. And then let that all go and rest with your legs long. Feel your 5 lines now. This was an ATM that I did one time when I first moved to Eugene and I was here by myself. And I got some kind of spider bite on my leg that just blew up one afternoon. And I was alone and I didn't have any medical infrastructure here. And it really scared me. So twice that week, I spent 2 hours in the waiting room at the urgent care center, literally shaking and with fear. And because I had no idea what this was, if I could get it under control. And finally did get under control. And a few days after this whole thing started, I woke up in the morning with absolutely no energy. My nervous system had gotten so hopped up during the week that I had some kind of adrenaline wash. I had run out of adrenaline and I just went into this crash and could barely get out of bed. So I got up and I was in the Feldenkrais training, and I don't know, it occurred to me, I got up and I did this ATM. And by noon, I felt better. It pulled me out of my crash. So this is a really great ATM for balancing the nervous system. So bring your knees back up to standing and lie your pinky side of your hand on the mat. So your thumb is up. And begin the movement of tilting your knees to the right and rolling your arms so that the hand rolls to the right and then back to the middle. So you're rolling your hands now with your knees to the right. Let your head go with it. Everything rolling to the right. And then when the next time everything's in the middle, pause and let everything roll to the left now. So your head and your knees and your wrists, your hands are all rolling to the left. And just notice which side's your easier side for rolling. Is it easier to roll to the right or is it easier to roll to the left? And when you're ready, just alternate back and forth, rolling a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right. And I always want to say stand up, sit down, fight, fight, fight whenever I say that. I should resist. So rolling the head and the hands left and right. And now let your head go opposite your hands and your knees. So your hands and your knees are going one direction and your head is going opposite. And this is that bringing the mop move. Bring some space to the spine. Feel your knees rolling over your feet. How is your elbow rolling? Bring your attention to your lower ribs on your right side, and just feel them rolling left and right. And then bring your attention to your lower ribs on your left side and follow them as they're rolling left and right. And then the next time everything's in the middle, pause. And now let your knees go opposite your head and your hands. So you might want to just let your head and your hands go together in the same direction, and then take your knees in the opposite direction. Find a breath, a rhythm of breath. It just makes this movement so easy. Feel that twist in your spine. And then the next time everything's in the middle, pause. And now let your hands go opposite your knees and your head. So take your head and your knees in the same direction and take your hands in the opposite direction. Of these 3 different movements, there always seems to be one that any given person is going to have trouble with. And it's going to be different for every different person. But the trick is to find something that we can't do easily. And then we know we found pay dirt. We found something in our movement vocabulary, some hole that we can fill in. And once we fill that in, other movements, more complicated movements, will become more available to us. And now let everything go in the same direction again, left and right. And then pause and take a rest. Bring your legs down. And get a sense of yourself now, your 5 lines, your leg lines and your arm lines, and your spine. How is your contact with the floor now? And now bring your knees back up to standing one last time. And bring your arms next to your body. So it's not uh, out away from your body, but it's pretty close next to your body. And begin this movement of, and you can have a little bit of space between your arms and your torso. But begin this movement of alternating, rolling everything to the right and everything to the left. So your hands are rolling to the right with your knees and your head. Just everything. Just remind yourself what this feels like with your arms fairly close to your body. And then when you're ready, take your hands maybe just an inch or two farther away from your body and continue this movement. Noticing your breath. Just let the excess effort just melt away. And then bring your arms a little bit further away from your body and just keep doing this movement. And just do it a few times and then shift your arms up a little bit farther away. And stop when your arms get to be straight out perpendicular to your body. So just explore this movement of moving your arms out and how does this affect the movement in your shoulders and in your torso. Just shifting your arms whenever you feel like it. And once you get your arms straight out, just keep doing it and then start to incrementally bring your arms back down again. What does this feel like in your shoulder blades as you're moving your arms? It gets a little bit of a different trajectory on your shoulders and your shoulder blades. So it's going to feel a little bit different. So then there was another time I was going to give this lesson to my class at the Trauma Healing Project. And I decided I was going to tell them the story about how I had the snake bite or the spider bite and how it brought me out of this crash. And so that morning, something had happened that had gotten me really excited. So my nervous system was really hopped up. And then I sat down to try and work this thing through. So I went through it. And at the end of doing this ATM, I had calmed down. So it kind of changed what I was going to tell people that night because I realized that on a lot of these lessons, connecting with our nervous system in this way isn't going to necessarily be calming or exciting. It's going to be balancing. And when your arms get back to just straight next to your side, what would it feel like to do this movement smaller and faster? So more like a jiggling. Yeah, just a tiny little jiggling. When we do it smaller and faster like this, some of that unnecessary tension doesn't have time to grab. It kind of shakes it loose. And then bring it back to just your normal speed. It feels good. Just do that a few more times. And then rest with your legs long. And notice your breath. Notice your 5 lines. And now keeping your awareness on your 5 lines, roll on up to sitting and then up to standing. Keeping your attention on these lines and how your skeleton is moving you through space. Then when you get to standing, notice yourself in standing. Feel your 5 lines now in standing. When we're trying to compete with gravity, there are muscles that have to contract to keep us standing up. So we do a lot of these lessons out of gravity so we can explore new collections, but then new connections, but then we stand back up again. And those new connections are going to stay with us, but they have to accommodate the muscles that are our anti-gravity muscles. So just get a sense of yourself in standing and even walk around a little bit. Take your 5 lines for a walk. And then come and unmute yourself and let me know what you think of this one.